and he knew Uncle Billy and his guess as to the trouble was far afield, so he tried another tack. "I've been over to the county seat, and I saw lots of your kinfolks over there." She showed no curiosity, no surprise, and still she did not look up at him. "I met your cousin, Loretta, over there, and I carried her home behind me on an old mule." Hale paused, smiling at the remembrance, and still she betrayed no interest. "She's a mighty pretty girl, and whenever I'd hit that old—" "She ain't!" The words were so shrieked out that Hale was bewildered, and then he guessed that the falling out between the fathers was more serious than he had supposed. "But she isn't as nice as you are," he added quickly, and the girl's quivering mouth steadied. The tears stopped in her vexed dark eyes, and she lifted them to him at last. "She ain't?" "No, indeed, she ain't." For a while they rode along again in silence. June no longer avoided his eyes now, and the unspoken question in her own presently came out. "You won't let Uncle Rufe bother me no more, will ye?" "No, indeed I won't," said Hale heartily. "What does he do to you?" "Nothing, except he's always a-teasing me, and I'm afeard of him." "Well, I'll take care of Uncle Rufe." "I know you'd say that," she said. "Pap and Dave always laughs at me." And she shook her head as though she were already threatening her bad uncle with what Hale would do to him. And she was so serious and trustful that Hale was curiously touched. By and by he lifted one flap of his saddle pockets again. "I've got some candy here for a nice little girl," he said, as though the subject had not been mentioned before. "It's for you. Won't you have some?" "I reckon I will," she said with a happy smile. Hale watched her while she munched a striped stick of peppermint. Her crimson bonnet had fallen from her sunlit hair and straight down from it to her bare little foot with its stubbed toe just darkening with dried blood. A sculptor would have loved the rounded slenderness in the curving long lines that shaped her brown throat, her arms, and her hands, which were prettily shaped, but so very dirty as to the nails, and her dangling bare leg. Her teeth were even and white, and most of them flashed when her red lips smiled. Her lashes were long and gave a touching softness to her eyes, even when she was looking quietly at him. But there were times, as he had noticed already, when a brooding look stole over them, and then they were the lair for the mysterious loneliness that was the very spirit of Lonesome Cove. Some day that little nose would be long enough, and some day, he thought, she would be very beautiful. "Your cousin Loretta, she was coming over to see you." June's teeth snapped viciously through the stick of candy, and then she turned on him, and behind the long lashes and deep down in the depth of those wonderful eyes, he saw an ageless something that bewildered him more than her words. "I hate her," she said fiercely. "Why, little girl?" he said gently. "I don't know," she said. And then the tears came in earnest, and she turned her head, sobbing. Hale helplessly reached over and patted her on the shoulder, but she shrank away from him. "Go away," she said, digging her fist into her eyes until her face was calm again. They had reached the spot on the river where he had seen her first, and beyond, the smoke of the cabin was rising above the undergrowth. "Lordy," she said, "but I do get lonesome over here." "Wouldn't you like to go over to the Gap with me sometimes?" Straightway her face was a ray of sunlight. "Would I like to go over—" She stopped suddenly and pulled in her horse, but Hale had heard nothing. "Hello!" shouted a voice from the bushes, and Devil Judd Tolliver issued from them with an axe on his shoulder. "I heerd you'd come back, and I'm glad to see you." He came down to the road and shook Hale's hand heartily. "What you been crying about?" he added, turning his hawk-like eyes on the little girl. "Nothing," she said sullenly. "Did she get mad with you about something?" said the old man to Hale. "She never cries except when she's mad." Hale laughed. You just hush up, both of you, said the girl with a sharp kick of her right foot. I reckon you can't stamp the ground that fur away from it, said the old man dryly. If you don't get the better of that all-fired temper of yourn, it's going to get the better of you, and then I'll have to spank you again. I reckon you ain't going to whoop me no more, Pap. I'm a-getting too big. The old man opened eyes and mouth with an indulgent roar of laughter. Come on up to the house, he said to Hale, turning to lead the way, the little girl following him. The old stepmother was again abed. Small Bub, the brother, still unafraid, sat down beside Hale, and the old man brought out a bottle of moonshine. I reckon I can trust ye, he said. I reckon you can, laughed Hale. The liquor was as fiery as ever, but it was grateful. And again the old man took nearly a tumblerful, plying Hale, meanwhile, about the happenings in town the day before. But Hale could tell him nothing that he seemed not already to know. It was quar, the old mountaineer said. I seed two men with the drap on each other, and both afeared to shoot. But I never heerd of such a ring around the rosy as 8 fellers would beat on one another and not a shoot shot. I'm glad I wasn't there. He frowned when Hale spoke of the Red Fox. You can't never tell whether that old devil is for ye or agin ye. But I've been plumb sick of these doings a long time now, and sometimes I think I'll just pull up stakes and go west and get out of it altogether. How did you learn so much about yesterday so soon? We hear things pretty quick in these mountains. Little Dave Tolliver come over here last night. Yes, broke in Bub, and he told us how you carried Loretty from town on a mule behind you, and she just assassin you, and as how she said she was a-going to get you for her sweetheart. Hale glanced by chance at the little girl. Her face was scarlet, and a light dawned. And Sis there said he was a-telling lies, and when she growed up, she was a-going to marry. Something snapped like a toy pistol, and Bub howled. A little brown hand had whacked him across the mouth, and the girl flashed indoors without a word. Bub got to his feet howling with pain and rage and started after her, but the old man caught him. Sit down, boy. Served you right for blabbing things that ain't your business. He shook with laughter. Jealousy. Great heavens, Hale thought, and that child, and for him. I knowed she was crying about something like that. She set a great store by you, and she studied them books you sent her plumb to pieces while you was away. She ain't nothing but a baby, but in certain ways she's as old as her mother was when she died. The amazing secret was out, and the little girl appeared no more until supper time, when she had waited on the table, but at no time would she look at Hale or speak to him again. For a while, the two men sat on the porch talking of the feud and the gap and the coal on the old man's place, and Hale had no trouble getting an option for a year on the old man's land. Just as dusk was setting, he got his horse. You better stay all night. No, I'll have to get along. The little girl did not appear to tell him goodbye, and when he went to his horse at the gate, he called, Tell June to come down here. I've got something for her. Come on, baby, the old man said, and the little girl came shyly down to the gate. Hale took a brown paper parcel from his saddlebags, unwrapped it, and betrayed the usual blue-eyed, flaxen-haired, rosy-cheeked doll. Only June did not know the like of it was in all the world. As she caught it to her breast, there were tears once more in her uplifted eyes. How about going over the gap with me, little girl, someday? He never guessed it, but there were a child and a woman before him now, and both answered, I'll go with ye anywhere. Hale stopped a while to rest his horse at the base of the big pine. He was practically alone in the world.